Okay, so you spent the last couple days looking at different graphs, different ways of displaying data, and so we looked at frequency charts, relative frequency charts, bar graphs, histograms, and so on and so forth. So you've done a lot of those by hand over the last little while, and while that's all well and good, that's really only kind of even practical for smaller data sets. I'm talking about data sets about 20 to 30 people, maybe a little bit more than that, but for larger data sets like one of the ones we're going to look at today, it would become really, really tedious, boring. It'd take a very, very long time just to even organize the data before you could even think about making a graph. So what we want to try and do is get you used to doing the same kind of thing you've been doing already, but using OpenOffice or some other kind of technology. Okay, and like anything, a lot of the tricks with using a program like OpenOffice or Excel are getting used to different commands and formats that you need to express those commands in order to get everything to work out. Once you can get over that hurdle, and once you've done it a couple times, it becomes a lot faster. But you do have to stick with it a few times and try a few until you get used to it. So just to show you what I have here, what I have is a list of all of the baseball players who played in the National League in Major League Baseball in 2005. So I have their names, the teams they played for, their salary, and their position. Okay, so if you look through this list, it's quite an extensive list, and looks about 440 people. So again, a lot of data in this list, so you wouldn't have to go through this by hand to try and sort it. So the example I'm going to look at right now is how to sort categorical nominal data. So that's data that can't be ordered in any way, so it's more of a label. So what in particular I'm going to look at is the different players' positions. So for starters, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a frequency chart and then a relative frequency chart for see how often each of these positions shows up within the data. Okay, and again, you can imagine doing this by hand. It would take a very, very long time just to even make the tally chart and then to transition from there. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is first I've listed all different positions that we have. So we have outfield, pitcher, catcher, first base, second base, third base, and shortstop. And I made a column for frequency and relative frequency. I'm going to start with frequency first. And what I want this to do is I'm going to give it a command that's going to search through this entire column, the position column here, that I'm going to select. And I'm only going to want it to count the data if it matches a certain position. So for this first one, I'm going to type in a command that's going to search through this column, and if it sees OF for outfielder, it's going to count the data and then put in a total. And then I'm going to repeat that for all these other things. So the way you type in a formula, again, is to go into the cell. So let's just say I want to put it in here next to outfielder for frequency. Okay, so I push equals to tell it that I want to do a formula or a command. And the command that I'm going to use for this is going to be called countif. So COUNTIF. Okay, so the name of the command that's going to let it go through and count the data if it meets a certain requirement is called countif. So once we have that, we're going to open bracket, and then like with the other formulas I was showing you how to calculate mean, median, mode before, we're going to select the data we want to search. Okay, so now that I've opened the bracket, I'm going to click here in the position column and select the entire column. So go all the way down here. Okay, so I'm going to select that entire range. So you see I've selected the cells D2 to D440, so basically that entire column. Okay, and before I close that bracket, the nice thing about OpenOffice is it gives you a hint as to the type of the format that it wants when you're using a command. So you'll see here it's popped up, it says countif, and it has in brackets here range with a semicolon and then criteria. So I'm going to put in a semicolon after the range of data I selected, and this is where I'm going to tell it the criteria I want to search for in order to count the data. So if you look up here, I'm looking to count the outfielders. So I want to search that column for the text OF for outfielder. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put in quotation marks, type in OF, and close the quotation marks, and then close my bracket. So again, what this formula is doing is it's telling it, I just told it to look in the data from D2 to D440, i.e. this entire column, and everywhere it sees the word or the string of letters OF for outfielder, it's going to count that data, and then it should give me the total frequency in that cell. So let's see what happens when I push enter. Okay, so I get 83. So right now it's gone through all that and told me that there's going to be 83 outfielders inside this data. Okay, so again, even though the command and the format of the command can be a little bit strange to look at first, once you know how it works, you can hopefully see this will be a lot faster in counting out the data one by one and getting it and sorting it that way. So I'm going to repeat this process for pitcher, catcher, first base, second base, third base, and shortstop. So you can kind of get the idea here. I could do this exact same thing for a pitcher, and using the exact same command, I could copy this value down here, copy it into this cell, and instead of I want it to, or sorry, of OF for outfielder, I want to search for P for pitcher. Okay, so push enter. Now it's telling me there's 215 pitchers amongst this data. Okay, so I'm going to continue doing this down and fill in the rest of the column. Okay, so I'll do that quickly here. Okay, so I skipped a few steps there, but I just repeated the same process for all the other cells that are in here. I just copied the text in and just changed what I want to search for. So from outfielder there to P for pitcher, catcher, first base, second base, third base, and shortstop. And it goes through, and now it's giving me a frequency chart for all the different positions that are in there. Okay, so with that in mind now, I do have enough to create a histogram, but since I'm here, I'm going to create the relative frequency chart as well. So remember, relative frequency expresses each frequency as a percentage of the total. So first we're going to need a total. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do a quick little formula here for the total. So again, to add numbers together, I'm just going to push equals for a formula. The command to add numbers together is going to be sum. So I'm going to do sum, open my bracket, highlight all the numbers I want to add together. So in this case, it will be all these positions, so cells G2 to G8. Close the brackets and enter. So it's going to add them up to say there's 439 players in this data set. So now that I have that, I can now do a calculation that will express each of these frequencies as a percentage. So let's just say I want to look at the outfielders for a sec. So for the outfielders, I have 83 of them. What that percentage going to be of the total of 439? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to push equals. Again, we shouldn't have to do any of these calculations by hand. That's why we have these spreadsheet programs, so we can do that. So we can save ourselves some time. So I'm going to push equals here. So I'm going to take the number of outfielders here. So I'm going to click on that cell. It's G2. Okay, and I'm going to want to divide that by, so divide means the forward slash. I want to divide that by the total number of players, which is in this case 439. So I click on that value, which is G9, push enter, and it gives me 0.18906605992. If I want fewer decimals, what I can do is I can click on the cell, and I can go Format, Cells, and I have a choice here. If I want it as a percentage, I can click on percent, and change it to a percentage with, let's say, 2 decimal places, 1 decimal place, whatever. I'll say 2 decimal places here. I could go to a number, again, change in decimal places, however many I feel are appropriate. I'm personally going to choose percentages because I think they're a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to change that to a percentage here with 2 decimal places. So that's going to change this to 18.91%. Okay, and the process is the same for all the other ones. If I wanted to, I could even try and copy this formula down. So I have G2 divided by G9. So Control C for copy and paste it in here. And you'll see I have a bit of a problem here. So you might wonder, well, why isn't this working? I'm just copying the same thing from this cell down here. So with spreadsheet programs, when you copy a cell and move it down, if it references another cell, you'll see here, if you look at the different formulas up in here, so this relative frequency took cell G2 and divided it by cell G9. So it took the frequency of outfielders divided by the total. Once I copied it down, you'll see that it now changed the cells from G3 to G10. Now the G3 is what I wanted. I actually want to use the number of pitchers, but it also moved that second value down as well. So there's a way around that. The thing is, the spreadsheet is trying to be helpful, thinking that if you're moving the cell down, if you're using the cell below the original one, you want to move the cells it referred to should be moved down as well, which was the case with one but not the other one. So what we need to do in order to keep that from changing when we do our formulas is something called an absolute cell reference. It means that you're referring to the cell in such a way, typing in, that it's not going to change if you copy the value down. So the way we do that is we look in our formula here. So first of all, let me delete this because this one's not working. So if I look up here, every calculation I do is going to refer to this total of 439. It's a really key number here. So this value here in G9 can't change when I copy the text down. So what I use, the symbol I use here to make it not change when I do some copying, are dollar signs. So I need to put a dollar sign before the G and a dollar sign before the 9. Okay, so that's called an absolute cell reference, and what that should mean is that when I now take this and copy this value down, you'll see that in my formula it's now going G3 divided by G9, which is exactly what I wanted it to do. Okay, and now if I copy this down further, I'll get the percentages for all the other positions. Okay, and just to do a check, I should make sure that all of my frequencies add up to 100%. So I'm going to do a sum here of all of these values, and hopefully that's equal to 100%, and it is. Okay, so again, getting used to the different syntax that's required for OpenOffice, but that can be how you can create a frequency and relative frequency chart for a large set of data. Okay, so hope this helps. Play around with it a little bit when you're working with some data sets for the assignment. Come ask me if you have any questions. So that will be it for this video. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to take these and create some bar graphs with them. Okay, so if you're interested in doing that for the assignment, you're really stuck, just go over there for some help. Okay, that's it. That's all. Cheers.